So in this question we're asked to find length AB, that's AB there. First of all we need to identify what sort of triangle we've got. If you look at this, we have got two sides that are identified as the same, so therefore we've got an isosceles triangle. Now obviously we haven't actually got a right angle triangle here, so we need to create one in order to find length AB. So here's my right angle triangle. I can split this triangle into two, so therefore this length here is half of AC, and this angle here is half of 40. Now before I start solving this problem, the best thing I can do is to redraw that triangle. Now I've created a right angle triangle, I can solve side AB just by using basic trigonometry. So like before, my first step is to label the diagram. Well, that is the hypotenuse, that's the opposite, and that one there is the adjacent. Again, like before, I identify what I want and what I've got. Well, I've got the opposite. I'm looking for length AB, so therefore I want the hypotenuse. I don't therefore need the adjacent, so I'll cross that one out. So the next step, as before, is to write out SOHCAHTOA. Identify what I've got. Well, I've got the opposite and the hypotenuse, so I write out the function. Sine of theta is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. I substitute the values, so the sine of 20 is equal to the opposite, which is 5 over the hypotenuse. And now I rearrange and solve, so therefore h is equal to 5 over sine of 20. Put that in my calculator. The hypotenuse, or length AB, is equal to 14.6 centimetres to 1 decimal place. Let's look at another question. In this question we're asked to find the length PS. There we go, side PS. What you need to recognise here is you've actually got two right angled triangles. So again, when you hear that right angled word, you start thinking about things like trigonometry and Pythagoras. So what I would do to start with, I would look at these two triangles and say, well, I want to work out PS. What information do I need to work out PS? If I was using Pythagoras, I would need that length and that length. So in order to find PS, I need this length here. I can now use this triangle in order to find this length here. So I'll redraw that triangle and I'll start to label it up. So here I've redrawn that triangle. Notice I've just turned it around a little bit to make it a bit easier to label. So opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. Opposite the angle that we're looking at here is the opposite sine, and the final one is the adjacent. Let's identify what I want. Well, I want this height, PR. Well, that's PR. That's our hypotenuse, so I want that. I've got the opposite. Don't need, don't want the adjacent, so I'll cross that one out. So the next step is to write out SOHCAHTOA. Identify what I want and what I need. Well, I've got the opposite, want the hypotenuse, so I'm using the sin function. So I've got the sin of theta is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Now I substitute the values I've got. So I've got the sin of 28 degrees is the opposite, which is 5, over the hypotenuse, which is PR. Our next job is to rearrange that, so therefore side PR is equal to 5 over the sin of 28. So now I put that into my calculator to get the length, so therefore length PR is equal to 10.6503. I've rounded this to 4 decimal places in order to minimise the final rounding error. So now I've calculated this length here, PR, which is this one here. Okay, I've now got a new triangle, PRS. So I've redrawn that here, PRS. 8 centimetres I've dropped down, and the 10.6503 is there. This is again a right angle triangle. Now in this case we're not going to use trigonometry. We're looking for a third side, this one here, and we've been given two sides. So this is straightforward Pythagoras. So I write the formula out and then substitute in the values. A and B don't matter. I'm looking for the hypotenuse, I'm looking for C, so therefore I've got 10.6503 squared plus 8 squared is equal to C squared. If I square root both sides, I can get the length C, and the length C is PS. So I've got PS is equal to the square root of 10.6503 squared plus 8 squared. Therefore, the length PS is equal to 13.3 centimetres to 1 dp. One thing I would note though is where I've actually rounded PR to 4 decimal places, sometimes if the final answer is expected to a high level of decimal places or a high level of significant figures, I would not round this at all and I would use all of the digits on my calculator.